Good morning everyone. Today we're going to be looking at painting a couple of miniatures from Night Model's DC Universe miniature game. So today I've got for you here Shazam and Black Adam. I've only got a couple other Night Models DC stuff. I got Sinestro and Atrocitus because I'm a fan of Green Lantern stuff in general. So I just got those couple of minis to do. And yeah, I'm actually quite a fan of how they do the DC stuff. It's well, it used to be metal, they're changing over to resin now. It's sort of not like heroic scale, it looks relatively realistically proportioned, or as much as you can get for superheroes, but next to 40k stuff it looks a little bit more normal. Detail's good, and a lot of them come as like a single piece, which is a big plus in my book. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the bases before I started gluing everything together and priming it. They've all got these sculpted texture bases. Now, I found that with Sinestro and stuff, I actually had to put quite a lot of sand on over the top of that anyway, because as you can see, if you just leave it plain and then paint it, you'll have all the nice rock texture, but then you'll have a big ugly strip in between his feet where his base rail goes, and that doesn't even quite sit flush in there. I had to cut away quite a lot of that just to get it to sit like this. So I will have to glue sand over that and then scatter it about the rest of the base like I did with the others, just to blend it in and make it look normal and not just like a patch of sand just between his feet. So there is that. Shazam, I think this is a newer style of base. The rail is actually, the slot for the rail is not cut out. So I will be able to do that myself, which will minimise the amount of like ugly empty space at the sides if the rail's not quite big enough. So we'll be able to make it fit quite flush. But it may still look a little bit weird to have just the rail between his feet. So I'll cut that out, glue him in, and then see what I can do with that. So here's Shazam after I cut out the smallest slot I could manage, his base rail. And as you can see, it's still sticking up from the base a little bit, and it still looks kind of noticeable. So I'm going to get the Miller Putt out. I'm going to try and see if I can copy the flagstone pattern. Just slap some over, groove some lines, see how that goes. In future, with these kind of bases, I might just take the base rail off entirely and then just make a little peg for one of the feet. I definitely wouldn't recommend this for beginners because it's difficult to cut the slot out without stabbing yourself. So here's Shazam and Black Adam. They're assembled, they're on the bases, they're primed. As you can see, I've tried to fill the gaps on Black Adam's base with sand, and also tried to resculpt the paving stones on Shazam's with Milliput before priming them. Results are a little bit but they should look a bit better once they're painted up. I've applied a little bit more sand onto Black Adam's base just to help cover up the base rail a little bit more. While that's drying, I'm going to proceed with Shazam. I'm just going to start with the lightest colours first. So I'm going to base coat his cape. That wants to be white, so I'm going to start with Administratum Grey. Then I'll highlight that up. And then I'll do the yellow bits, and then finally the red, which is the main colour of his costume. The one thing I just want to avoid is getting red onto any of the yellow and white bits, because that's going to be a pain to tidy up afterwards. I'm going to put a bit of the silicon grey contrast on his base as well, just to start getting some of the colours down on those paving stones. Going to use grey cere now, just to paint over most of the cape except the recesses. The idea of just highlighting it through the greys and get it to white. This little sash thing down here is not part of the cape, it's part of his belt, so that's going to be yellow. But all the rest of this is going to be white. I'm doing this as basically just a heavy dry brush, mostly over all of it, except for the very recesses. And then I'll hit it again with white scar. Actually just going to hit a little bit of my camera. Actually just going to hit a little bit of Dawnstone just on the tops of the paving slabs as well, and get them looking a little bit more solid colour, a little bit less contrasty, see what I can do about that. Going to do some larger highlights still, probably going to need a couple of thin coats of these, just because it's white scar. White scar doesn't cover particularly well just right off the bat. Just going to get a little bit of Nuln oil. I'm going to put that on the flagstones, and I'm also going to put that on the cape and re-highlight back up afterwards, and they should be done then. Finally, I'm going to highlight Shazam's cape back up with white scar. So I've given it a dry brush, and I'm just doing a little bit more of a deliberate edge highlight after that, just to knock up the lightest areas. So I've used the same colours for Black Adam's base that I used for Shazam's. So that's a coat of Basilicanum Grey contrast. Then I dry brushed Dawnstone rather than painting it on because it's a bit more like sand and rubble. And then finished that off with a wash of Nuln Oil. So we can imagine maybe that they're in the same sort of city urban area, but the ground Black Adam's standing on is a bit more rubbly and broken up, maybe because of whatever villainous activities he's been doing. So the plan is I'm going to do slightly different skin tones on Shazam and Black Adam, but for the time being they're both starting from a base coat of Bugman's Glow. And make sure to take a little extra care with thinning this down because I don't want to obscure any of the face detail. Next stage on Shazam's skin is going to be Kislev flesh, and just like before, going to be very careful, apply a little at a time, not go too heavy with it, pretty much almost dry brushing it on the face. And you can see I've done another light dry brush layer on top of that just to build it up a little bit, and I'm quite happy with how I've got the colours highlighted there now, but I've still maintained some nice shading on his face so you can see that little smirk he's got going on. For Black Adam, I'm following a similar principle. I'm using Xandri Dust instead. There's a user on Twitter turned me to the idea of using this as a skin tone. Usually it looks a little bit I don't know what the technical term is, desaturated maybe, but over Bugman's Glow, with that still in the recesses, that gives it a little bit of warmth. Next up, Shazam's skin will get a wash with good old Reichland Flesh Shade, just being careful not to get any of that on the white cape that we've already done. And for Adam, I'm going to do a wash of Agrak's Earth Shade. To finish off the skin, I'm just going to go in with a light dry brush of highlights of the last skin layer colour before the wash. So that's Kislev Flesh for Shazam and Xandri Dust for Black Adam. Going to move on to the yellow parts of both their costumes now, so I can do that on both of them at the same time. And I'm going to start by nicely thinning down some, what's it pronounced, Iriel Yellow? I don't know, that older one, this guy. I'm going to do the same thing I did with Sinestro. Don't know if I've showed that one off yet. But yeah, we'll start with something, a couple of thin coats of Iriel Yellow. That should cover over the white quite nicely and not knock out any of the detail. And yeah, I'm going to do the same for the yellow on Black Adam's costume. He has got the lightning bolt sculpted on his chest, but it is very faint, so I'm going to have to be very careful. He says just slapping it all on there. No, I'll redefine the edges a bit when I come to do the black. Shazam's also got some yellow trim on his cape. I'm going to switch to a slightly finer brush and just carefully start picking that out. Now we're just going to use some Cassandori yellow and give all the yellow parts of the costumes a wash with that. Start getting a little bit of definition on there. So for the highlight stage, I'm just going to use Flash Gets Yellow, and I'm going to focus that on just sharp edges where the cloth folds, things like that, because I've got a nice rich yellow going on with the wash, and I want to try and keep that as much as possible. The yellow highlights, the Flash Gets Yellow highlights are done on Black Adam as well. I'm really happy with how this yellow is looking. It's bright, it's warm, it's popping, and it should pretty much match the yellow I used on Sinestro. So I'm quite excited to, if I ever actually play this game, I can feel Black Adam and Sinestro, and I've got Superwoman knocking around as well, so I can just do an entire black and yellow villains team, which should be pretty cool. I'm going to move on to Shazam's red costume areas now. Since I want a nice bright red, and we're going over a white base coat, we're going to start off with Evil Sun's Scarlet. That's starting to look really nice with that red on there already, just from the first coat. So just to shade the red a little bit, we're going to be giving it a wash of Carroburg Crimson, and just like with the base coat, we're going to take extra special care not to get it on any of the yellow bits or, God forbid, any of the white bits. Try and save us some cleaning up. I'm going to make a start on the black areas, so that's all of the rest of Black Adam's costume, plus the hair on both of them. And I'm just going to start by base coating all of that Abaddon black. Now the sculpted detail on the lightning bolt on Black Adam's chest is very faint, so I'm going to have to be very careful going around that and, check up on the actual picture I've got here to show me where it is. Alright, I'm not going to lie, I did have to essentially freehand that lightning bolt back on. It's not perfect, but it's okay. I'm alright with it. Night Models has actually announced a new Black Adam model coming out while I'm halfway through doing this one, which is very cool of them, thank you. So yeah, hopefully I might get that one when it comes out, see how it compares to this one, do a little side by side. It's actually got a cape, which is going to be interesting. because I think that's going to be a white cape next to a black costume, which is concerning. If the lightning bolt's sculpted on with a bit more defined detail, then I'll be a lot happier. He has got quite a sharp hairline. I just wanted to make sure I got that in nice and neat. You can see I've just done Shazam's hair in with Abaddon Black as well. And now that the wash has dried, I'm going to start highlighting with Wild Rider Red. I'm just going to focus on the most prominent raised areas and muscle groups. There we go, look at that, very nice. Just gonna make sure I'm getting the cloth folds as well. So he's got a few. The hair on both's been base coated Abaddon Black, like I said earlier. And I'm just gonna highlight just the hair with a bit of Skaven Black dinge. And oh yeah, there's a little button on the front of Shazam's costume that I'm just gonna be doing with the same yellow mix. I just couldn't get to that while I was doing all the red. And just going to pop a little bit of Nuln oil over the hair, just to darken it down a bit, because it's looking a little bit too grey with just the Skaven Blight tinge on there. The black costume areas now, I'm going to highlight with Eshin Grey. Again, I'm focusing on just the tops of the muscles and any sort of cloth folds around the joints. Stuff like that. Can go a little bit heavy with this because I'm going to put a contrast paint over it afterwards. So that's going to dull it down and stop it from looking too grey. Now, as promised, we're going to bring in the Black Templar contrast and just apply that over all the black areas of Black Adam's costume until we get tired of saying the word black. Very careful around that lightning bolt on the chest there, and of course all the other yellow areas. Originally, back when I did Sinestro, I just did Abaddon Black, Eshin Grey and Nuln Oil, but I went back a bit later after the contrast came out and put some Black Templar over the black bits of his costume, and it just, yeah, it made it look so much better. Like, it gave it a bit of a gloss, it was deeper black, made the yellow contrast a lot better, ironically. Okay, here we go. Shazam and Black Adam are now complete. As you can see, I've also painted Superwoman from the Crime Syndicate set. I used basically the same colours I used for these guys. So the skin tones are the same as on Shazam. The black hair and yellow, same as on both. Black costume, same as on Black Adam. And of course the base, the same as well. The only bit I did differently was the lasso. So that was Retributor armour and then just a wash of Reichland Flesh Shade, just to give it a gold look that's a bit different to the yellow costume elements. So now, with these two and Sinestro, I could have a nice neat little team of black and yellow supervillains, so that would be nice. I might redo his base to match these two, just to make it a bit more cohesive. Shazam at the moment is the only superhero I have painted from this game, so maybe I should do one or two more. Let me know in the comments if you like this, if you'd like me to do more DC stuff or superhero stuff in general, or if you want me to quit this and get back to doing historicals or 40k. Yeah, you can tell me that as well. Alright, that's about it. I will see you in the next one. Take care.